Okay, hey everyone, and welcome to the weekly Vega Fairground Testnet Jam. My name is Dagan. I'm a community manager at Vega, and I'm usually active in all our various channels. This is the weekly Vega Fairground Jam. It's an ongoing series, and it takes place every Thursday at 6 p.m. British Summer Time or UTC +1. And each week we take a deep dive or into a different aspect of the Vega protocol. We're a member of the Vega team, and every now and then a special guest. Last week we had Matt from the engineering team, and this week we have part 2 with Candida, where we're doing an introduction to console and some of the key functionality of console, but also some of the things that you'll need for the set of incentivized testnet activities coming next week. We went over them somewhat last week, but they are getting closer to launch, so we'd like to go over it again this week. So we are, let me give you some quick housekeeping before we begin. While Candida is presenting, you're free to ask questions in the Twitch chat, and she will answer those at the end of the call. And about 5 minutes before we end the session, there's a Zoom link that I post in the Twitch chat, and you can click that link and come along and just hang out with the team, chat about anything that's going on, or just follow up on questions you might have. Candida will be kind of going for an overview of different things in console as we did 2 weeks ago, and I'll be asking her questions throughout as well. So anything that I think is a bit confusing or things that I want more details on, I will ask her, and hopefully she can answer. And if she can't, I will give my best guess at the answer as well. But yeah, that's it for me. That's the introduction. Over to you, Candida.
Thanks, Dagan. Hi again, everyone. Just a really quick review of who I am. I am user advocate at Vega. So that means that I focus on making sure our users have a voice within the Vega team. I track, triage, and share feedback, make sure our teams know what's going on with our users, and I organize our documentation, and I write a lot of the non-API documentation as well. So as Dagan said, today I'm going to take you on another little tour of Vega console, and hopefully my screen is sharing. Yeah, so hopefully I don't cover too much of, forgot to delete that, a little bit of a sneak preview. Hopefully I don't cover too much of what I covered last time. But if I go over a few things again, it's a refresher so that you know what's going on. So cool, let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is connect to my wallet. I did go through this last time, and we've got a few other good bits of documentation and video around this, but we have 2 options here. I'm going to go with the Vega hosted wallet because it's just a bit easier for this process. And what's quite cool here is if you don't already have one, you can actually create one in this screen, which I went ahead and did earlier. Cool. So I'm now in, and I can see here that I have a key called my Vega key, and you can see the public key here. And then I've got no collateral, no assets here. And that's going to be quite useful. So the first thing I'm going to do is start by showing you how to deposit. And last time I said, you know, go off and try this yourself, but this time I'm gonna actually walk you through the process. It'll be really useful for you to give this a go. Luckily, there's a few assets to choose from, so you'll have some opportunities to play around. The markets are not cooperating a ton today, so we're gonna pull some assets in, and you're gonna have to wish me luck, and we'll see how this all goes. So I'm gonna go with USDC because it looks like the only active market at the moment is using USDC. So here we go. So first thing I'm gonna do is point out that I have MetaMask installed as a browser extension, and I'm on the Ropsten test network. Make sure you use Ropsten. It won't work if you try to use the mainnet one, so you're fine. You're not going to accidentally use real Ethereum on here, but just make sure, just save yourself a little trouble. So that's a good place to start. We're at my USDC. So here it is. So first thing I'm going to do is click on the deposit button. One of the things I'm not going to do is get myself ROPs in Ethereum because I have some, and also it would add to the process, and you don't need to do that. It's not very exciting. But if you click on this link, it will open a faucet in the new tab, and you can use that one. Occasionally, some of them play up, so you might have to find a different one. There are 2 that I know of for sure, and there's probably a few others. I'm always happy to send links on Discord if you're having trouble. But I already have some to pay gas, as you can see in here. So like I said, I'm going to skip that. And I'm going to give myself some USDC, some TUSDC. So you can see here it pops up the MetaMask extension. And I'm going to confirm. For people who are new, this looks like it says 0 Ethereum, and it is technically 0 Ethereum, which is why there's not a number there. Doesn't mean you're going to get 0 assets, but it's not Ethereum, and that's the default that MetaMask shows. But what I'm going to do is get the default that the faucet allows in this case. So I'm just going to hit confirm. And so I'm going to wait. You can watch the progress on Etherscan, but luckily it was nice and quick, which is good. So the next thing you need to do here is you can either like type this number in if you want, or if you only want to put a portion of it in, you can type it in. But if you tap into the text field here, you can just hit use maximum, and that's all the TUSDC that I just got from the faucet. So I'm going to approve that. And now again, I'm getting MetaMask telling me what to do, or asking me if I really want to do this. It's going to cost me some small amount of testnet Ethereum. I'm fine with that. And away we go. It's worth noting here while we're waiting. Oh, wow, nice and quick, great. So I've approved that. And then now I'm going to actually do the deposit. So once again, we're going to MetaMask. And I'm saying now, okay, MetaMask, I've put some collateral into MetaMask here, which is something you need to do. Obviously, when we're not using testnet assets, as in when it's a mainnet and there's real money involved, you might already have money in the MetaMask, so you're not going to need to go through that process. And obviously, we're not going to mint money for you. But for testnet, this is how it works. So now, in effect, this is the part in which you would say, okay, I'm now going to just transfer money from my Ethereum wallet into my Vega wallet. And here we go. So now I can vamp a little bit. Let's see how much time the deposit process gives me to talk a little bit about the bridge that this is using. Just as a really, really high level overview, Vega will not have its own collateral token, so it connects to other existing tokens. Obviously, that provides a lot more flexibility for people who want to create markets and use things that a lot of other great projects have already put out there and have value on their own. So the Erc20 Bridge allows Vega users to deposit and withdraw Ethereum-based tokens. As you can see, all of the testnet tokens are Erc20 testnet tokens, as we talked about, but just for the sake of clarity. So yeah, because there are no assets native to the Vega network, they all have to be bridged from other blockchains. And the first bridge to be released is this one, but there will be more in the future. And the reason that, the reason that we went with Erc20 is because it is the most established token standard and provides a lot of opportunity as a place to start. So cool, so you can see here that my deposit is complete and I have some USDC. So if I wanted to, I could then click through and deposit another asset, but you've seen the process, now you know what it looks like. And you can see now in my collateral view here that I've got loads of USDC. If only it was so easy with the real stuff. So now what I'm going to do actually, which is not what you would do immediately after a deposit, but we'll give it a shot, is I'm going to withdraw some of this. I've decided that I've put in way too much. And I don't care about gas fees because it's all fake money. So now I'm going to withdraw. So just to take a step back, you can see here that it's actually the same button, the deposit and withdraw option. And I'm going to go into withdraw. And so here, so you can see here that it's already showing me my Vega key and the amount that I have. I think I might have cut off, but you get the gist. And then it asks, okay, what Ethereum address do you want to send this to? In this case, I definitely want to use my connected wallet, but obviously in theory, you could add in a different one if you wanted to. I don't want to withdraw at all because I want to try and do some trading. So I'm just going to withdraw 10. Let's see what happens. So you hit start withdrawal, and you can see here, you get some quick information here. I'm withdrawing 10 from this key to this key. This is when I've started it. And I've actually got just under a day to do this. And what happens after this time is that the assets are sent back into Vega, into like released for trading, I should say. At the moment, they're frozen, so you can't trade with them. But so this kind of limbo state so that you can finish the withdrawal process, which is what I've just started. So here we go. Here I am telling MetaMask, please do the thing. And away we go. So while we wait for this withdrawal to happen, I might even step away from it because we'll see it go eventually. I've just done a really, really basic intro into the bridge, obviously. Danny and I think a few other people on the team, but particularly Danny, worked on a really great blog post that we have on Medium that I would recommend reading if you're interested in knowing more about the bridge. And we definitely have other videos about it in a little more detail, including some chats with Danny, who's worked on all of this. So I'd highly recommend, if you're interested in that sort of thing, to go check them out. Cool. So this is in progress. I don't need to wait for this withdrawal to finish to start playing around with the market. So I'm just going to leave it chugging away in the background, and I should get a little notification in the corner when it's done. Oh, looks like it is done actually. So you can see here that oh no, it's actually probably frozen. Either way, you can see that I only have 10 less to play around with, which hopefully, if things don't go terribly wrong, should be fine. So I'm going to start with this market because that is the market I have to play with. I'm going to create a new workspace for it, which pre-builds it. And again, I talked a little about workspaces in the last one. So feel free to play with them yourselves or go back and get a little overview of them. So right, I'm going to place a trade. Let's see how we do. So I am going to try to place a trade to start that is rejected, actually, which I don't think I did last time. So let's see how it goes. So I'm going to try to buy a lot. Oh, there's my deposit. You can see on my deposit. Oh, that's a little bit of a delayed notification. Deposit's been done a while ago. But you can see there, we've got some notifications, which is quite cool. And I'm going to try to do an equally absurd price, which I don't think would get filled. Yeah. So I'm going to go short. Doesn't actually matter. And if I've done this right, yeah, my trade is rejected. So you can see here in the open orders that I have a status of rejected for this. I talked about this a lot last time, but I'm going to reiterate that if you see like a little highlighted thing, or even if you don't, sometimes it's just worth checking it out. It's worth clicking on it because there's often little bits of extra information in there that will help you out as you're going along your trading journey. So here, my status is rejected. And the reason for that is insufficient funds to cover margin, which makes a lot of sense because I tried to buy quite a lot that I just am not able to pay for. And so the network has just gone, she's joking, like, we're not going to fill this. And it rejects my order, which I think is pretty reasonable. One of the reasons that people often see rejected orders, which I'm not going to be able to replicate right now, is actually if a market is shifting between auction and not auction. And if you're trying to place an order type that's not valid for an auction, but you might place it right before the market goes into an auction, but then it's getting processed, and by the time it tries to fill, the market's in auction, so it doesn't work. So you might see a rejected reason that has to do with the order type that you've used not being valid for an auction. So yeah, but if you get something like this, that means you don't have enough money, in effect. Sometimes people also end up in this kind of a situation if they're trying to provide liquidity and they're using all their money in one go, rather than thinking about, okay, you're going to need margin to keep all these orders going. And if you like use all of that collateral at once in liquidity provision orders, you're going to end up stuck with no money soon. So yeah, so that's that. So speaking of margin, let's see if I'm going to place an order that will actually trade. So this time I'm going to go long, I'm feeling optimistic, but not too optimistic because I've only done one feature. And let's see. Cool. Okay, so I can see it in my order history is filled. And I think I'm going to have to do a really quick little refresh because occasionally, good, phew, there it is. Occasionally there's some kind of refresh stuff with a few of the views that is, I think I mentioned before, a known bug that, you know, the team is looking into. So hopefully that will not be a problem for too much longer, but you know, we'll see. But either way, it's not a huge issue. If you just refresh, you should be able to see it there. Cool. So we can see here that I've got a trade. And so last time I showed you how to close a position from here, but this time I'm going to look a little more closely at here we go. So I have to stretch these views out a little bit and squashed my screen a little. The allocated margin here. So this is another one of those little bits where if you tap on it, you can see a little more information here. And so this shows you the 4 margin levels that our Vega network uses to constantly track the margin to make sure that you're not over or under collateralized to keep the networks, to keep the markets healthy and safe. And so you can see here, this is where my margin is at the moment, and it's kind of at between release and initial. And I'm really quickly just going to give you some info about the margining. And there's definitely a lot more detailed stuff about this, including some of the maths and the risk models behind this that I'm definitely not going to touch right now, but we've got loads of other resources on that, including in the Docs website. And I'm pretty sure, no, I'm definitely sure in previous Fairground Jams. So as always, I would say go, if you want to learn a little bit more, definitely go dive into that. So this is not exactly directly related, but it's worth pointing out that the margining system for the Vega network is automated cross-margining. And cross-margining means that if you have gains on one market, you can use those gains on another market. It's not all completely siloed. So it's supported between all markets. Of course, if you're using collateral that's not relevant to a different market, for example, we've got the Aave DAI market is backing continuous trading. It uses T-DAI. Obviously, the margin is not going to transfer over from that. But if it's using the same collateral, it will be available to use across different markets. Yeah, so let me talk through these. So I'm close to release, but it's more interesting to start with initial, I think. So the initial margin is the amount that's transferred from your collateral to be used as margin when the order is placed. So that's the amount that would have been used. And then it's constantly, like I said, constantly recalculating. And then up here is the release level. And if the margin hits the release level, in effect, it means that your position is over collateralized. So you get more money back into your collateral, which you can use for other things or just let it sit there and be happy. And then on the other side of the coin is the search level. And if this were to drop below the search level, that means the network is going to try to get more money out of your collateral into margin, because you're kind of burning through it perhaps more quickly than the initial margin allowed for. And then the maintenance margin is the absolute minimum amount required to cover adverse market moves. And if your margin drops below the maintenance margin number, your position is going to get closed out, because it just means that you can't afford to keep it open. And on that note, actually, if you see an order here, which I'm also probably not going to be able to replicate, and it shows up as a network order, that means you ran out of cache and your order was closed out. So it's worth keeping that one in mind. So if you see that there, so that's an order type that you obviously you don't want to initiate. It's definitely not one that you can do yourself. It just has to happen to you. Maybe there will be a future initiative in which people will be challenged to get network orders. I don't know. That's not predicting anything or any inside information, just a thought. So yeah, that's my order, and I'm going to leave it sitting pretty while I look at one of the areas that I didn't get to talk about last time, which is the charts. So I'd say in the past couple of months, I can't remember exactly when, we had some really, really great new charts coming in. We have someone who's been working on a charting library, which is open source, and it's in the Vega repo. So feel free to go in there, check it out if you're interested in charting libraries. If you want to pop in there, if you want to leave like requests for different charting functionality, please feel free. It's Pennant. We'll share a link later. But if you just have a look in the GitHub/Vega protocol repo, there's not a ton of open source repos yet, but Pennant is one of them. So keep an eye out for that. So I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. So we've got here a candlestick chart, which was what was our basic one to start with in the early days. But this one obviously has a lot more guidelines and a lot more interesting stuff going on, including my position, which is highlighted here, which is quite cool. So you can watch that kind of bop around. It's pretty steady at the moment, but generally speaking, you can change the time intervals, which is, I think, similar ones to ones we've always had available there, but it's just a little bit clearer. You can also change the way the data is visualized. So we've got a mountain, line graphs for those who, it's gonna load for me. And these other types of candles that I don't know very much about, I have to be honest. If anyone else wants to go into more detail on those, feel free. And then we've also got some overlays that we can add, which is pretty cool. I have to admit, I don't necessarily know what most of them do, but I think it's quite cool. I like data, even if I don't always understand it. So it's just quite fun to see all the new stuff that's been added in. And a lot of these features are things that have been requested by the community. So we had a lot of requests for more in-depth charting. So on that note, if there's some charting stuff that you'd like to see that we don't already have, any indicators or, I don't know, functionality that you want, please feel free to mention it, because we want to make sure that the charts provide value for the people using them. And so it's quite important that they do that. And John is always keen to hear, John, who's worked on our charts, is always keen to hear some new ideas and chat charts. So yeah, so that's the charts for you. If anyone, yeah, I would recommend playing around with them, especially if you know what you're doing with the indicators, which I definitely don't. But yeah. Let's see. I'm actually, what else is there to talk about? I've got one more thing to show you that I didn't cover last time. It's actually a little bit about searching for views, which I talked about. But one of the views that sometimes it's kind of just worth putting a letter in and see what comes up. But I'm going to show you the proposals view. Because I think proposals are going to become important in the near future. So it's probably useful to understand how they work. So this is the proposals view that's popped up. I'm going to add it to my workspace. Sorry, chart. So you can see here some proposals that have happened recently. And you can see there's none at the moment that are open for voting. They've all been enacted in this case. I can tell you that what they are is actually the markets, some of which you can't see at the moment. It's just the state that the markets are in. But we've switched over to a more kind of realistic scenario in which all of the markets on testnet are actually governance proposals. So every time there's a testnet reset, there's actually a whole process internally at the moment of proposing all these markets and then voting to get them enacted. So you can see them all here. So I didn't vote, clearly. I also, this account didn't exist when these markets were proposed, which would be one of the reasons. But if I had voted, it would say here how I had voted. And you can see again, they've all passed, so that's quite cool. I didn't get the chance to have one rejected in here just so you can see what that looked like, but you just have to take my word for it. So you can see, if you clicked on the details, there's a little bit of information about this market that was proposed, including when it was proposed, the deadline, etc. And all of these are things that the market proposer, yes, would include. And so when we're talking about real world markets and real world governance proposals, it's always worth, looking carefully at what's there and thinking about it before you decide to vote. It's a good habit to get into for testnet too, of course, but particularly when we're talking about a future for governance proposals that aren't going to get wiped out with a testnet reset. And understanding what all the different fields means is quite useful too, I would say. And at the moment, it's worth pointing out as well, these are all market proposals. That doesn't mean that there aren't other types of proposals that will be possible and that are possible, including network parameter proposals and asset proposals. So adding new assets to use on Vega. I think that's kind of the basic stuff that I wanted to cover this time around. Dagan, is there anything that you think I've missed out on that you'd like to see?
No, I actually think that was quite good. You were quite comprehensive, and I was looking for areas to jump in, but you covered most things in good depth.
Yeah.
Regarding when you talked about Pennant and the charts libraries, I did post them in the Twitch chat, but we did host the Fairground Jam with John, who's the guy behind the core charting libraries. And you can check that out on the Vega YouTube channel, where we'll post this as well shortly after we've finished with the session. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. And Candida, I think you covered all you did want to cover. So yeah, there's no other questions. I've given the link to the Zoom room.
Great.
Yeah, so I'll wrap up. Thank you all for attending. And as always, if you have any further questions or anything that comes up post the session, you can always check out the Discord or Telegram server where we'll try and get back to you any questions you might have. We're going to be in the Zoom room in the Twitch chat now, so go ahead over there if you'd like to chat or hang out with the team. Otherwise, one thing to note is that next week there will not be a Vega Fairground Jam, as I will be away, but the week after will continue as per usual. And do keep your eyes out on the Vega socials over the next week, because we have some announcements coming next week or before the end of the month at the very least. So we look forward to seeing you guys interacting with any of the things that come up in the undefined future. That's it for this week. Thank you all for attending, and until next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.